Okay, this video is going to talk about how I rate the goalies. They're so hard to do. They're not hard, but they're just much different from the players. So the first thing I try to do every year is break the goalies into different tiers. It really requires you to kind of know, and I don't get it right every time. Definitely not. Some people help me. Adam helps me a lot with this one. We try to get them into tiers, and then when quickness is like the main stat, so it's so important to goalies. So then I'll assign quickness based on what tier they're in. So like the very top level goalies like Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, they've been very good goalies for the past few years. They're going to get a 9 quickness. Let me go to last year's. I have last year's here. This year's isn't finished, so I don't want to look at those numbers too hard right now. So last year here, Hellebuck and Vasilevsky, again, Rask was very good last year. I think those were the 3 Vezina finalists. So they got a 9. And then skating and puck control are going to be your secondary goalie stats. So I'll just give them 9s in that area. And then I'll adjust up and down to get their overall rating into like a final ranking. I really don't use any stats for the goalies at all. I mean, I'll check just to see and make sure that a guy that I'm trying to give a 9 to didn't have like just a subpar season. But for the most part, it's all just about having them ranked in their different tiers and then adjusting their overall just to indicate which goalies are better. Let's see, power, again, that goes off of weight. So that one's pretty simple. Aggression, all the goalies should be 4, 5, or 6 aggression. So 5 will be like the default. If a guy is more aggressive, Ben Bishop, who else is pretty like known for being very aggressive? Jonathan Quick, he's like all over the crease making saves, or used to be anyway. I'm going to give those guys like a 6 for aggression. They're a little bit busier in their crease. They're not as calm and collected as the other guys. So I'll give them a 6. Other guys who are a little more timid, especially like younger goalies before they really settle in, we can bring them down to a 4. These are guys who are going to play like a little further back in their net and not be flailing all over the place. There's not. They're also, you could say they're unsettled, but not aggressively unsettled. They're more like passively unsettled. So they're going to get a 4. Fatigue. Goalies should all have pretty high fatigue. I don't know how much it affects them really in the simulator. But you know, that in case of the goalie who's able to keep up a high level of play throughout the game. I mean, pretty much any goalie in the AHL these days should realistically be a 9, but we do have to get them into different categories here, different rating tiers. So we'll pull back on some of those guys. And you can really look and see, some guys who get rattled at the end of games sometimes or whatnot, they might come down. And of course, we give younger goalies and rookies lower numbers until they've really proven themselves. Injury, same thing. It's just based on how many games they're playing. But with the goalies, the scale is going to be a little bit higher. Mostly 8s and 9s. And then in cases where guys really have injury history, maybe a 7. But we really don't want to screw over WHL teams by having their goalies injured, because it just would really mess with our rosters if we had a lot of goalie injuries. So try to keep those 7, 8, 9. Special case, David Ayers last year. He was an emergency backup for 1 game. I gave him a 6. Could have been a 5. You never know. He's just not a factor really in our simulator, so it wasn't that important. Penalties, same thing. They're really all 8s and 9s, except for like extreme cases. Mike Smith, I don't know what he must have had a a crazy game last year that gave him a lot of penalty minutes. I think he might have lost his cool and went berserk in one game. He does have a history of that, so he got a 6 last year. But for the most part, they're all going to be 8s or 9s. We already went over skating, puck control, passing. That's another hard one. That's kind of like an equalizer rating, where most goalies are good at handling the puck these days. They're good at distributing to their defensemen. So they're pretty much all going to be 8 or 9. Some, you just know their reputations. Some of them will be bumped up to a 9. Some will be brought down to a 7. And we use that a little bit to make sure that we get the overall ratings in an appropriate range. So, you can do that with, say, fatigue, penalty, and passing. Those are ones you can really adjust to get the overall proper. Sometimes aggression, but mainly quickness, skating, and puck control are going to be your big 3, based on how you're going to rank the goalies every year, and then everything else in between is pretty much getting it to where the overall rating is right.